And if
Yep.
Matt, if you make sure it's kind of working, okay, before we start.
I am
Um,
literally waiting. Oh, you know what? I didn't do.
you didn't subscribe.
No, I didn't subscribe. But I need to make sure you didn't erase my outro.
That
You
is true.
bloody did.
Well, I'll tell you what. While we preamble, I'm going to just check the audio levels as well. So Ryan, if you could say some words for me.
My name is Ryan, and yeah, I am saying some words.
Excellent, excellent. Luke, if you could say some words for me, please.
My name is Luke, and I'm also saying some words.
Excellent, excellent. We're coming through at roughly the same level, which is just superb and splendid and excellent. And right, did anyone hear that bong noise?
Mm-mm.
I might have, I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm just wondering if that came up on the recording. I've had this freaking thing trying to come up for ages. I shall go back and see if it comes up on the recording.
My name is Ryan.
My name is Luke.
Excellent, excellent. We're coming through at roughly the same level, which is just superb and splendid and excellent. And it did come up. Oh, I hope that doesn't happen on while we're on the thing. If it does, I'll have to just kind of pause and edit that out. But it shouldn't come up again. So if we are ready,
Nope.
Ryan, you monitoring the chat?
I haven't got a notification saying that we're live yet.
It's on the second channel.
Yeah, I've subscribed to the second channel.
Do you know, it would be good if I was subscribed to that channel so that I could see if we're live. I really hope I haven't got the other key in for the actual mist. Okay. See, this is the thing. I haven't had any thing to say that we are live.
Oh god, I don't want to do Apex, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, there's two. There's Missed Apex Podcast and Missed Apex. And
It came on Missed Apex.
The second one is what we are streaming onto. Okay, so we'll go for that again. And then I'll just wait for the notification. I think that was taking longer than it normally does. Maybe it's just because that channel's been so dead for the last few months that it had to wake itself up.
Is there anything actually happening on this? Yeah, so we are live. Okay.
Good. You see the stream?
Yep, I can see the stream and people putting in messages.
Excellent. Right, well, hello. Sorry about that confusion a moment ago. I thought I had messed up with the stream, but it turns out I hadn't. And I panicked over nothing. But thank you for joining us on what will hopefully be the first successful streaming of E-Radio Show for the season preview, the 2017-18 season. I get so used to saying 2016-17 season that I almost messed it up just there and then. But
Stevens, I'm not. The link you gave me is not showing any video, so I don't know where you are. Ryan, can you copy your YouTube thing and put it in the Skype chat for me, please? Thank you. Sorry, I just have like one too many things going on here.
Yeah, that's fair. You interrupted my slick intro to the live stream. Well, I'll tell you what. If we can get this out when we're only 5 minutes late, I'll take that as a result. So Ryan, you've got the stream up though. You can see it working. Okay.
All right, here we go. Sorry, I was just.
That's all right. You get, yeah, no, it's fine. You just get done whatever you need.
No, I'm just going to. I just wanted to go, like I said, open up the chat real quick, and then I'll be ready to go.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm on the Missed Apex page and did nothing with the live stream notification is on the page. So I'm really baffled as to
Because the thing is, there's
where
two
he
channels.
saw it.
So there's Missed Apex Podcast, which is the main one, and then the second one is just Missed Apex.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Yeah.
I was on that page.
Oh, okay.
And there was no notification on that page. But when he saw the notification, I was elsewhere.
Mm.
Right, if that makes any sense at all. But
Yeah.
yeah, I see. I'm not going to check the sound. Have you listened to the sound, Ryan?
Yeah, I've listened to the sound. Hold on,
there's
there's
the
a little
sound.
bit of fuzzy.
Beautiful. Nope, don't do that. All right. Almost there. Ready, you.
I mean, there's the obvious Skype background fuzz.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt, while we're just waiting on Matt to get his chat room sorted, I'll say welcome once again. We are joined by Ryan Ferris, as per usual, and we also have NBC/Crash.net/ am I missing anyone out there?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's Luke Smith, who you may remember from our season review. He's back with us, and we are very grateful to him for this because he has a far superior intellect to all three of us. It's a little bit annoying when my earphones stop working in the middle of talking. Matt, how are we? Are we almost good to go?
Yep, we're good to go.
We are good to go. Okay. Do you know what I should have done? I should have played the introduction music because we still can't play it because of the way our mixers talk to each other. Oh, by the way, Ryan, there's no need to copy and paste comments into the chat. We are not going to do comment of the week. We're just going to try and warm ourselves up first. But thank you to everyone for joining. And so I think without further ado, we shall get things started. So if I could have 5 seconds of silence and then mute, and Matt can take us away with the intro.
You are listening to E-Radio by Missed Apex. We are electric. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the E-Radio Show, a Missed Apex podcast production. I'm Matt Trumpets, and today's episode is brought to you by, surprise, Matt Ragsdale and the City Line Trio. Hit them up on Indiegogo to support their album, Nightscapes, at https://igg.me/nightscapes, or check them out on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Matt Ragsdale City Line Trio. Today's episode is called, How Many Drivers Can We Fit in a Seat? And joining us today is the inestimable, a word that I pronounced correctly, unlike certain other hosts on this network, Chris C. Stevens-Journo. Stevens, how's it going, Chris?
Hey, Matt, it's great to be back on the airwaves talking about Formula E.
Yeah, I mean, like, some stuff has really happened, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting off-season, and we're starting to see it all come to fruition as the season's about to get underway.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I tell you what, before we get started, let me tell you that we are an independent podcast hosted by MissedApexPodcast.com. We'll be bringing you race reviews and news shows across the season, and you can now listen in live by subscribing to Missed Apex's second channel, which we will probably rename E-Radio, and you'll get a notification when we go live. Well, what say we bring some friends along on this journey?
That sounds like an excellent idea.
Wonderful. Well, our first guest today is well known to the Missed Apex audience. It is Ryan Ferret Ferris, who is almost visible in his boy cave.
Oh, hi. I've forgot to put 50p in the meter again and turn on the lights. But yeah, hello everyone.
So how's it been going there, Ryan? Have you been living and breathing Formula E from the moment the season stopped and nothing else at all?
Well, I've sort of tried keeping in touch with it, but it's a bit of an odd one to keep in touch with when you've also got a Formula One season going on during the actual off season and the MotoGP season and every other season under the sky.
Yeah, it can be a bit distracting with all them other motorsports going on. Well, what about we introduce our last saved the best for guest, Mr. Luke Smith himself, looking very liveried from, I believe you were in a hotel room in some undisclosed location.
Yes, I'm in Dubai at the moment. Head of Abu Dhabi F1 finale this weekend, and then, more importantly, the Formula E season opener next weekend.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. And you've been writing some good stuff. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately.
Well, obviously, we've had the Formula E season end at the end of July. Since then, there's been lots of Formula One, lots of WEC going on. So I'm currently one of, I think, of 3 journalists doing the WEC season finale in Bahrain, which was last weekend. Then we've got Abu Dhabi F1 this weekend. And then, the Formula E season opener next weekend. So it's a busy period, but looking forward to getting some electric racing back going again.
Yeah, I think everybody's very, very excited about that. So if you're ready with that bumper, Mr. Stevens, how about we get on with the show? Well, there have been a lot of changes. And so why don't we start with the first one, and maybe the most important one of all, or the one that everything else flows from. There have been some new rules put into place. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the kind of headline one is the increase in race power from 170 kilowatts to 180. And I know that sounds like, a small improvement, but crucially the regen is the same as what it was last season. So it's going to be a much bigger challenge for the cars to get to the end of the race.
Right. And do we know why? Because that was already supposed to have happened. Luke, do we have any idea why that might have been delayed until this season?
Oh, well, I think obviously there's a need to make sure there's no complications installing it. There's no issues. So I think Formula wanted to make sure it could walk before it could run. And obviously now does seem to be the good time to do it. The technology is in place. It's going well. So it looks good.
Of course, the other example of that is the original plan was for us to be on 220 kilowatts of qualifying power by now, but we're still at 200, the same as what we've run since season 2. And again, as Luke said, that's kind of making sure that all the teams are capable of doing it from not only a sporting standpoint, but also it wouldn't look great if Formula E were to push the boundaries too far, and we would end up having a lot of breakdowns and issues. It wouldn't shower the sport in glory.
Right. So what else is on the docket for change this season? You mentioned from a sporting point of view. Is there any other sporting regulations that are going to be changing?
Yeah, the other headline one is that to score a point for the fastest lap, you now have to have finished inside the top 10. And this is basically a response to a lot of the criticism last season was that if a driver were to get into a first lap collision, then they would immediately jump in the pits, go into their second car, and try and set the fastest lap to salvage something. And that kind of takes away the point of the fastest lap point, as it were.
Right. And so what do we think of this, Ryan? Is this a good idea?
It depends, really. I think, we did see some points last year where there were some unlucky drivers that would find themselves getting into the next car, then going for fastest lap, but then obviously not finding themselves getting to the end of the race because of that. I think if it is possible to repair the car in the pit lane and then go out in that car and then get into the second car and manage the full race distance, then I think, top 10's a good shout.
Are my cards hopelessly invisible on camera again?
Slightly.
Totally invisible?
Yeah, maybe just do that as an L.
All right, very good. Well, Luke, what do you think of this change? Is it going to help things? I mean, personally, I kind of enjoyed the random nature of the fast lap people getting in the way of the actual race, but I gather not everybody was as much a fan of that as I was.
No, I think that is the thing. It was just so random. You'd have, drivers out on track who really had no reason being there. They weren't in the race. They were basically doing qualifying efforts while there was a race going on. So I think now we're going to see when drivers have an issue and they maybe do have damage or retire, they will retire from the race. They won't be in it anymore. So I think it's a good step. I think it's a sort of a more grown-up step from Formula E. I think it's good that we're going to have drivers really pushing to get the fastest lap when they're actually fighting for position and not just doing glory runs at the end because they've got the spare cars to do it. I think it makes sense. I think also we'll end up without the farcical end we saw at season 2 with Degrassi and Buemi just trying to go out and get the fastest lap, which it was a good story. I think it was quite a quirky way to end the season, but it was really quite farcical, I think.
So the original kind of response to that scenario was to reduce the worth of the fastest lap down to the single point. I think it was 2 before, which in that scenario wouldn't really have worked because they were level on points anyway. But I do agree it's a more mature standpoint. It means that there's nothing actually interfering with the race going on.
Speaking of races, I hear that there might be a few new races on the calendar.
Yes, all right. This is a very exciting lineup that Formula E has got, and I think the criticism of races being far apart and there not being enough of them, we've finally been responded to. I think season 3 was when this was supposed to happen, but there were a lot of issues with certain circuits that cropped up and stopped that happening. Really, whereas this season they've got it absolutely right. So to kind of kick off with the new ones, we've got Santiago, which would be February 3rd, and then Rome to kick off the European season in April. But then also we've got Sao Paulo just before that, and Zurich as well, hosting the first kind of big motor race, in 65 odd years. In Switzerland, so that is a real stepping point.
Yeah, and races had been banned quite a while in Switzerland, hadn't they, Luke?
I think we're going back to the 50s, I think, or 60s, since there's been motorsport allowed in Switzerland, bar like hill climb events and things like that. So it's a really significant moment. I think it shows just the global appeal of Formula E and like how well it does fit the sort of green nature that I think cities are trying to push out, and obviously Zurich can see that, and Switzerland can make a big concession on its previous stance to motorsport. So a really big step for Formula E. I think likewise with Rome. I mean, it's another race that Formula One for so many years was so determined to try and get and be there, and it never did, but Formula E's made it happen, which is really cool to see.
If memory serves me correct, motorsport was banned in Switzerland due to the 1955 Le Mans disaster, and so it's been banned since then.
I think you might be right. Shockingly. So on the new circuits, which one are you looking forward to most, Ryan?
I'm quite looking forward to Sao Paulo. I'm wondering what that's going to be like, but also Rome. Where is it going to be? Is it going to be going past the Colosseums and parts like that of the ancient towns, or is it going to be another modern city race?
I think it's more the modern city that they've gone for. They've released the track map, and the setting does sound rather beautiful, to be honest, the way they've painted the picture of it. To be honest, Matt, this is quite a hard question for me to answer, because the only one we've seen of the new cities is Rome. Unless we've seen the Santiago one, I've just kind of forgotten about it. Luke is confirming that with the nod. Tell me about it, Luke.
Yeah, well, I was going to pick Santiago as the one I'm sort of most looking forward to. It's quite a cool layout, quite similar to Montreal, I think, which we were maybe sort of a bit unsure about when we first saw it, but the racing it produced was absolutely fantastic. It's a long circuit. I think it's going to be second longest on the calendar besides Marrakesh. And lots of overtaking opportunities, which is cool. And I don't know Santiago that well, but if the track's anything to go by, it should be a really good race.
That's brilliant. Now, slightly less exciting is the fact that we might be looking at a move for the Montreal race. Do we know anything about that yet?
in terms of where it'll be in Montreal, not really. Apart from the fact they kind of want to move it away from downtown Montreal, where the race was originally happening.
Yeah, obviously, Mayor Dennis Coderre made a really big investment in bringing Formula E to Montreal. There was a big outlay from the city to get all the infrastructure and everything in place, and it was a real big point of contention for people in the city when it came to the mayoral elections. Obviously, Coderre lost. There's a new mayor now in place, and the city gave a very sort of, expected statement where it's like, oh, we're sort of looking into options with Formula E. So it didn't really give anything away, but given the animosity that I think went out towards it from the locals, I think it might be difficult to see it going back to where it was this year, because it was, right bang in the middle of the city, lots of issues with it. A move to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is an option, perhaps, but that kind of goes against Formula E's idea of being in the cities and, really trying to get street circuits.
And the trouble with the Formula One track as well is that it will just kill the cars because of the long straights that Formula E cars are not designed to be working around. And it's such a shame because for me, that Montreal track, it was the best circuit that Formula E had produced at the time. And it's a huge shame that we're going to be losing that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Monaco, that was sort of always a bit of a questionable circuit just because, Formula One goes there and it is so strongly linked with F1. You see the Formula E cars going around there and you think, well, it's a bit slow. And I think, we're going to have the same issue in Montreal if they do go to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I hope a solution can be found one way or another because, it's a double header. It's 2 races on the calendar that we really do need to make sure happen. There's a couple of question marks I hear floating about Sao Paulo as well. So we don't want to be losing sort of 2-3 races off the bat before we've even got the season going, really.
I was wondering if they do go to Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, will they do like they did at Valencia and add chicanes in on the straights?
It's an option, I think. Although the chicanes of Valencia, I think, didn't go down too well. Chris, you were there. What was the reaction from the drivers?
In Valencia, they really didn't like him. I wasn't there, but I was reliably informed of the animosity towards it, especially from Sebastian Buemi, who really had an issue with them. So I don't think that one's going to happen, really.
Yeah, but wasn't part of that they wouldn't put them back in the same place when somebody wanged into them?
Also, just they were rather clumsily put together. It's not like they put curbs down to mark the chicanes. They literally had a concrete barrier with tires around it that if you nipped it, it tore the rear end of the car off. And they weren't best pleased about it. The reason they couldn't just put curbs down is because you need permission from the circuit to alter the track in that way. And I don't know how far they got in terms of requesting it, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, but this may be just the thing that you have to accept when you're dealing with this sport that is, or with the series that's this new, and especially one that targets cities and city centers, right?
Well, to be fair, we shouldn't have been going to Valencia in the first place. The whole point of moving away from Donington was to try and find somewhere that was more like a Formula E track. And I'm sorry, but that circuit just doesn't exist outside of Formula E. It's incredibly hot as well, and I know they say that was more representative than Donington, which was a lot colder when they were testing there. But the one hot day of Donington testing last year, nobody went out because they said it was too hot. So I don't really see why we went to Valencia at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought when it was announced, it was a bonkers decision because, there was nothing more about the Valencia circuit that was more like a Formula E track than Donington. If anything, even less so, because Donington does actually have a couple of chicanes. So, a really, really bizarre decision, I think. But that's what they did. I think, as you say, it's so difficult to find a proper track that is good for testing like that. Obviously, we know a lot of teams do testing at tracks like Calafat, which are very tight and twisty, but they can't really sort of host a big collective testing session, so it's more difficult. But hopefully in the future they can find a more workable solution, because otherwise I think it's really difficult to glean much from pre-season testing.
I've said this a lot, and I'll say it again. They should go to Castle Combe because of the bumps, the chicanes. The TT riders use it because it's the closest thing that they can get to the TT course without having to go to the TT course. So, it's a good shout, I reckon.
All right. Speaking of good shouts, the calendar has changed a little bit too, hasn't it?
Yeah, so when I was talking about earlier in regards to kind of criticisms of the calendar, one of the biggest ones was the distance between the races. Now, the biggest gap that we have is 5 weeks this season between Hong Kong and Marrakesh, the second and third rounds of the championship. But beyond that, there's no more than a month, and most of them will be kind of 3-week gaps. So we actually have a much more consistent, concise and tightly packed calendar, which I think can only be a good thing for the sport.
I think no one is going to be willing to argue that point very much. What say we move on to the new things in the teams? Well, I have a fondness for regulations and dry, dusty bureaucracy. But I have to admit, I suspect most of our listeners are going to be much more interested in hearing about the teams and especially about a lot of the driver movement that's gone on. And I'm guessing some of this is due to Porsche winding up its LMP1 involvement. But there's a lot more interest from the drivers now than I've ever seen. So why don't you take us through that, Chris?
Yeah, so just to kind of kick things off with the teams, there's been a lot of talk about Renault during the off-season because of the imminent rebranding of Nissan. Of course, and they're part of the same company, so there's nothing really more than a rebrand due to happen next season. But as far as I'm aware, there is going to be some re-jostling of some personnel within the team, and some quite senior figures as well. So that should be an interesting one to watch. I think the most interesting thing for me really is that when Nissan does sort of take over as the rebrand, they'll still be running a Renault powertrain for that first season.
Right. So who is moving on? I mean, is Prost going to stay with them? Is he going to move on to I've seen him at the Formula One races. So who potentially is coming in to take over running the show?
I couldn't really say who's coming in to replace him. Some Nissan ambassador you would imagine, but I would strongly suspect Alain Prost moving with Renault into the Formula One project, which of course they're vastly vamping up and saving a lot of money by not having Renault on the Formula E car, which they can then put into their Formula One project. And I think for me, does this maybe call into question whether Nico Prost will be staying with the team as well? And actually, I know that we've sort of ummed and ahed on the idea of Toyota potentially having an issue with Buemi racing for another Japanese manufacturer, and they all but confirmed at the prize gala, did they not, Luke, that they would still be taking part in LMP1 next season?
Yeah, that's right. So Toyota's signed up for the 2018-19 campaign. But obviously that does then overlap into when we'll see Nissan hit the grid in Formula E. So rightly so, as you say, is there going to be this sort of conflict between the two Japanese manufacturers? We saw at the Bahrain LMP1 test, obviously there was a massive issue with Fernando Alonso there, a McLaren Honda driver racing a Toyota, and that caused all kinds of problems for the team in terms of a promotional point of view. So you've got to wonder how they're going to play that. Obviously we know Buemi and Prost do have contracts through to the end of season 5, but you imagine that the Nissan rebranding, takeover, whatever you want to call it, that may change things. Nissan may want to sort of look at some of its own homegrown stars who could maybe come in. Obviously, someone like Jan Mardenborough has been a really, really important figure in their work over the years. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Well, I tell you what, this brings up an interesting question because to get ahead of ourselves a little bit, I know that Audi has jumped in with both feet onto the apt train, and they seem to have brought a lot of resources to bear on the team. And at the same time, we have Renault, which has been the class leader. And now with Nissan coming in and them wanting to focus more on the Formula One team, are we looking at a situation where suddenly Renault is going to be very, very vulnerable on the grid for the first time just because the money isn't being spent in the same way because it's being put elsewhere?
I don't know. As far as I can tell, the money, the investment is still there in Formula E, while their name is still on the car. So I don't think that's going to quite take the hit this season, or indeed next season, because they started development on the season 5 powertrain maybe a year ago, some even earlier, in anticipation of the big change to a single car per race. So I don't think it's quite going to hit Renault. I think it might hit Nissan when it's suddenly their turn to design the powertrain and go about it alone.
You have any thoughts on that, Luke?
Yeah, I think Chris summed it up really well. I think, it might be that when Nissan arrive, that's when the problems maybe start coming. But you got to remember, Renault's achieved everything it set out to do. It's 3-time team champions. Obviously, Buemi got a single driver's title in the season 2. So mission accomplished from that side. Really, it's done a good tie-in for their electric car, the Renault Zoe. I think they can sort of leave Formula E as a brand with their head held high and knowing they've done everything they set out to do.
Aces. Well, I'll tell you one of the teams that has interested me most, and that's because, of course, it's an American team to a certain extent, and that's been Andretti. And I loved Robin Frains. I love Simona Di Silvestro. They've had a lot of drivers through there that I was a big fan of, but they're starting to get some investment from BMW, but it doesn't seem to be to the same level as the Audi thing.
No, not quite yet. At the moment, it's an integration of BMW personnel, engineers coming into the team, and that sort of started last season, and they were a little bit late to the party, if I'm honest, because we all remember Andretti had a woeful season in 2016-17. That's kind of stepping up a bit, and we expect the full kind of works takeover to be in season 5, because a lot of the manufacturers are kind of waiting for the car swap to be removed before they kind of officially put their name on the car as a this is our work. Whereas Audi have jumped the gun on them a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think they're making a wise move by doing that, Luke?
I think it's. I think Andretti. There seems to be quite a lot of internal issues going on there, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how things build with BMW. I think. They're really sort of, I think, looking at season 5 as the first year that the team will be truly BMW. You've got to wonder just how much this year will really affect what they're doing. Because obviously you need to make the preparations, everything like that. But the signs coming out of Andretti haven't been good for a while. Hopefully BMW can really turn that around and make the project their own.
Right. So I want to take advantage here, if I can, of the fact that both you and Stevens are paddock whisperers, as it were. And I know Techeetah has been making a big deal about becoming a manufacturer, but are they going to have a partner? Are they going to do it on their own? Have you heard anything about that? I'm just genuinely curious.
For Techeetah?
Yeah.
Well, Jean-Eric Vergne has said that they will have manufacturer status next season. He hasn't said with which manufacturer, but the all likelihood is that it will be the one he had a very strong relationship with in season 2.
which of course was DS, and I think we're just gonna label it. We know what's going on. Yeah, it looks very, very strong that DS will link up with Cheetah. Obviously, they've been working with Virgin Racing since season 2, but it does seem they're going to make a shift there. All the signs are pointing to it.
Okay, Luke, now we've lost you.
I think all the signs are pointing to an internet interruption there, Mr.
Yeah.
Stevens. So what was, finish this thought for him, because you seem to know exactly where he was going.
Yeah, of course. You know, they've been working very strongly together in the past, and it was, DS who were quite upset with the fact that Vern was kind of pushed out for Jose Maria Lopez, and I think there's kind of been some unsettlement in the DS Virgin camp. Perhaps it could be fair to say. So yeah, the strong likelihood is that DS will be leaving for Techeetah. Where that leaves Virgin, we don't quite know, because they'll be without a manufacturer. So where do they go from it? Do they take a customer status, or do they take a risk with a new manufacturer?
Oh, this is you're literally anticipating the question I was going to ask you, but isn't it going to be season 5 when this happens? And if it is season 5, I mean, isn't that the season that all the manufacturers are really targeting anyway? I mean, they might just be a prize property, as it were.
Yeah, it's definitely not great timing, because, like we said, season 5, it's the big one, when all the big changes are happening and all the manufacturers are coming in, and they want, to be right up there, proving themselves in what will be a new era of Formula E.
Yeah, well, I was actually thinking about it a little bit differently, because I mean, isn't there a limit set by Formula E as to how many new teams can come onto the grid? And if you were a manufacturer who wanted into Formula E and suddenly a team like Virgin needed a partner, wouldn't that offer you sort of a backdoor entry had you been late in, shall we say, filing the paperwork to get on board?
The only trouble with that is, it will be a big risk with a new manufacturer, because you look at Jaguar, who came in last year. It's always odd.
We should use season just to make it simple.
They came in last season, and there's no surprise coming in 2 years behind the mark. They were the slowest team, and they finished last in the championship. It was very, very close, that last position in the championship, and they did score some really strong results, but they were most definitely behind the mark. And that problem is only going to be exaggerated by another 2 years of development for the other teams, plus all of the testing and development that will have gone into this season 5 powertrain, because like I said, they have been working on this thing for years.
All right, then. Well, I tell you what, I know that we could go on for ages about the pluses and minuses of all of this, but I'm going to stop right there and suggest that since the chat room has for some time jumped to the hunky goodness of the new drivers, perhaps we should follow them there. So, Ryan, could you take a quick look at the chat and tell us, who are we interested in the chat room? Who are they talking about driver-wise?
So the likes of Hannah Hassel, they're talking about Kamui Kobayashi. Obviously, by the sounds of things, doing the Hong Kong round. Also, there's some talk of Alex Lynn, obviously after his super sub round in where was that he did his stepped in last season.
I think it was Virgin. Is that correct, Stevens?
Yeah, in place of Lopez at New York.
Right.
No, I can't quite see anyone else, but yeah, there seems to be big shout outs for Kamui and Lynn at the moment.
Okay, well, why don't we start with Lynn? So what's going on there? Who's he replacing, and what do we think of his prospects?
Well, he's replacing Jose Maria Lopez, just as he did in New York, but on a permanent basis this time. And it's a shame to see Lopez go, because he really found his feet in Formula E quite quickly, and before New York was outscoring Sam Bird, and was proving himself very well. And he said in an article on Autosport, he feels that because he missed that New York round, it's cost him his drive. That WEC clash, that ultimately Virgin need a driver who's going to be there for all the races. They can't be coping with the idea of clashes, and I know that the FIA has tried really hard to kind of dim down on clashes between its major series, but sometimes it just can't be helped. And ultimately, I'd have to agree, but also, not to discredit Alex Lynn at all, I am hugely excited to see what he can do in a full season of Formula E, having impressed us massively in New York.
Yeah, well, it is kind of a win-win for Virgin, but I will say I'm definitely going to pour one out for Pachito there, because I was a big fan, and the fact that he was racing Bird so quickly, having not been in Formula E before, was incredibly impressive. The man is just fast. So who else is on board? Who else? Tell me about Andre Lauderer. Now, this is interesting because he wasn't exactly a fan of the series not too long ago, was he?
Yeah, it's funny. He's had to eat a little bit of humble pie during this, and to be fair, he has kind of admitted that he got Formula E wrong now that he's done some testing and is all geared up for the season. So he'll be replacing Stefan Sarazan, which we weren't really surprised to see Sarazan go, because he was he had other things to look at. His rally team that is now expanded into sports cars in the European Le Mans series and the Asian Le Mans series. So that's all the best to him. But it does mean we get a WEC driver on board, a hugely talented one at that as well.
Sorry, I was distracted by a motorbike there, checking my audio levels. Right, so Sarazan is gone, Lauderer is in, and Techeetah was pretty fast last year. Are we expecting them to be there or thereabouts yet again this year?
Oh, absolutely. They've still got that Renault powertrain in the back of it, still a Renault customer, and they did win a race last year. Ultimately, it was when Edams were very much on the back foot in that final race in Montreal. But consider how different the team would be now to what it was this time last year. A year ago, that was a team that was barely put together, that was relieved to have made it to testing, and was making silly fundamental errors, like not letting Jean-Eric Vergne out in the pit lane to do his Super Pole run in Marrakesh, costing him a chance at pole, and that undid his entire day in his race. And I think you'll be seeing a much more mature Techeetah this season.
Excellent. So who else is lining up? Oh, go ahead.
Luke, if you're with us, could we try?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Talk about Techeetah.
I think the team's shaping up in a good way. I think Andre Lauderer is an absolutely brilliant asset for the team to have. He's really proven himself in sports cars over the years, but also in single-seaters. He's been racing in the Japanese Super Formula Series for some time, and he's always been quick. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what him and Jean-Eric Vergne can do together. I think it's a really, really potent lineup. I think it's going to be interesting to see in terms of to shape up in the pecking order how they do. Jev did sort of suggest that they maybe prey a little bit more to the manufacturer teams this season, but we'll see. I mean, they're a good operation, a lean operation, but they are always pretty competitive.
So who else? Line us up. What other? Because we have more than a few. He's a former WEC driver. Who else is coming to us from WEC?
Well, that would be Neil Ianni over at Dragon, and this really is an exciting one. But he's replacing Loic Duval. And if you remember when we did our Montreal race review, we sort of talked about Loic Duval as a driver who looked like he was in his last race in Formula E, and that's proven very much to be the case. And with him at testing brought some quite significant support from Porsche. But the interesting thing that's sort of happened since then is that from there was the big build up of a potential technical partnership with Porsche, and even the idea that they could become a B team to Porsche when they enter formally in season 6. And since then it's all gone to pot. And it seems like it's reportedly it's Jay Penske who has kind of turned away the deal, as it were, which is quite shocking, and it's not something that we're really understanding. Me and Luke had a sort of brief chat about it last night, and we don't quite understand it.
Luke?
Yeah, it's strange. Just its operation ahead of its entry in season 6. That's something you wouldn't turn down. But I don't know. Maybe it's to do with Dragon wanting to keep their identity.
I'll tell you what, Luke. The lag is picking up again. So,
like Porsche.
I'll tell you what, Luke. I'm gonna hang up on you. Do you want to try the iPad, and then we'll go from there. So just jump back into the call. Okay, cool. Sorry about that, folks. He is in a hotel in Dubai. The Wi-Fi isn't great.
This is for having people this good on. This is the price that we sometimes pay. Not that you're chopped liver or anything there, Stevens.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, well, I do what I can. So nobody really knows yet why Penske has suddenly become resistant to this deal. And is it definitely Penske saying no, or is it Porsche getting cold feet?
At the moment, it does seem like it's Penske saying no, and that's why it's quite a surprise. Why this has fallen flat, because it did seem like Porsche were quite keen to work with Dragon on this.
Yeah. Penske, though, I don't know. They have a long storied history in motorsports, and maybe Porsche just wanted something from them that they were not willing to give up.
Well, it's normally I would kind of agree with that, but with the situation the Dragon team is in at the moment, it's partnered with another manufacturer that is, for want of a better word, is dying, really, in the form of Faraday Future. There is very little other than negative press about them, usually about finances of that manufacturer. And, for what it's worth, it's not really sort of coming to anything. I mean, this season will be Faraday's first in terms of what they've actually put out on the track. Although they were partnered with them last season, the deal was done later than when the powertrain was designed. So this year we'll actually see what Faraday Future is made of, and who knows, we may be talking about them in a very different way this time next year. But at the moment, it would seem like they're looking for a split.
Dragon and Faraday is what you mean.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, move us on then. I do want to save, I know everyone wants to talk about Kobayashi, and that's exactly why, just like your local news, I'm saving it for the last. So we've got a couple of other drivers come in. Run them down real quick.
So we've got Luca Filippi coming in at Neo, which is the Next EV team that's undergone another rebrand, and you'll know him from IndyCar and maybe from GP2 a few years ago as well. It was actually runner-up the year Grosjean walked away with it. So yeah, handy little guy, and he'll be partnering Oliver Turvey because of course Nelson Piquet has gone off to Jaguar, which is that's quite a big thing, season 1 champion moving into what I would call the big money. That's a long-term investment, joining Jaguar, and definitely that's going to pay off at some point, I think. And there seemed to be a strained relationship between Piquet and Neo developing. So it makes sense. And I'm looking forward to seeing how sort of Turvey goes from this, really, because he's kind of got to step up and lead the team now and show his rookie teammate how it's done.
Yeah, well, I think Nelson never forgave him for that Season 2 car that was such a dog, quite frankly. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, I'm not quite sure because obviously I haven't read masses into it, but obviously Turvey was quickest in the final test, wasn't it? So showing that the Neo car is still got potential, where the Jaguar just seems to be very much like last season and going to be a midfield car, possibly trailing at the back end.
But that's what I mean in terms of it's the long-term investment, and actually I wouldn't be surprised if Jaguar made quite a big leap forward. I mean, yeah, it's still a strong possibility that Neo are going to be ahead of Jaguar this season. But that's what we mean about the long-term investment. So, Neo, they're still sticking with that twin motor layout, and I'm looking forward to seeing sort of how they've gone about it in terms of reducing the weight, which of course is the big issue with the twin motor layout. But in the first race in Hong Kong last season, it was the quickest car in qualifying and led the first part of the race. So who knows, really?
I think Luke has rejoined us. You want to get in on this conversation, Luke?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Are you able to repeat the question?
Yeah, we were discussing Nelson Piquet Jr. moving to Jaguar from Neo, and whether or not that was going to be a good thing short term or it was going to be a good thing long term.
I think both. I think short term, I think Jag can. I think they can really prove themselves this season. They've got a year under their belt now. They've got the budget. They've got the resources. So I think they can be a force in season 4 even. Long term, I think seasons are going to be up there with the other manufacturers. I think Neo, there's quite a few issues within the team there that maybe have held it back in recent years. PK has been pretty non-time there for some time. It's a really positive move for all involved.
Excellent. Well, I tell you, if I can just take a brief side trip, tell me about the support series that Jaguar is running.
So this is quite a big thing, actually. It's, sort of 20 I-Paces that are having a big race around Formula E tracks. And I think it's great because it's providing the extra entertainment for the fans who are there. You get a whole nother series to watch. And it's something new for Formula E. In the first season, it sort of had that... It was basically the electric equivalent of F1 in schools, where they would kind of have some of their races, but didn't really sort of become a thing. So this again, it's another landmark step in the maturing and development of Formula E. It's got its own support series now.
And so, what is an I-Pace for absolutely everybody who has no idea what that is?
To be honest, I don't know an awful lot about it myself. But it's the to put it kind of basically, it is the result of Jaguar's electrification, which is what is happening with all manufacturers. We keep talking about how the road car market is changing because of emissions, and even by law now, in a few years' time you won't be able to make a fully internal combustion engine car and put it on the road. And so this is Jaguar's response to it, and it's the electric sports car, and I like the fact that even though we're going to the eco-friendly mindset, the speed is still there.
Yeah, well, I think is it going to be an electric SUV or an electric car from Jaguar? But it's going to be a spec series, right? They're all going to be the same. Do we know who's going to be driving it all, or that just remains to be seen? Are they going to take Formula E drivers, and make them race in this too?
No, no, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about who's driving in it. Really, it's still at very much a kind of development stage where it's an idea right now that's being put into place. All the blocks aren't quite in yet.
Gotcha. Speaking of being in, I think there's one more person to mention before we get to the whole let's explain what's happening at Andretti.
Yes, Eduardo Mortara at Venturi. And I'm quite excited about this. We've got 2 Mercedes factory drivers at the Venturi team. And if you were watching the GT World Cup at Macau the weekend, you'll know that Mortara won that race and Engel was third, having come back from a little bit way down the grid because of the pile-up that happened in the qualification race, which of course you saw. It was all over social media. And this is a very, very exciting lineup for me. If Venturi have issues, they can't blame the drivers, in my opinion.
No, I would think not. Not with a team like that. All right, so let's move on to Andretti. What's going on there? Why do we have so many different drivers?
I wish I could answer this one. Really, that certain question. It is really confusing what's happening. Because of course with France out of the picture, the smart money was with Alexander Sims, but there's there are some clashes that he's kind of got to work out, and so Tom Blomqvist was then going to be doing the first half of the season, and then Sims taking over in the second half. That's what we thought during testing, but then lo and behold, last week, suddenly Kamui Kobayashi is driving in Hong Kong. Really, we don't know what's going on. I mean, really, it's probably maybe a marketing publicity thing, which I don't like to say really, because it sort of cheapens it a little bit, which is wrong, because I'm very excited about seeing Kamui Kobayashi in Formula E, really. He's a very exciting driver in a very exciting series. I think it's going to make for a great combination. But as I understand it, he's only doing Hong Kong before Blomqvist and Sims take back over.
Well, that makes me sad, because I did love it when he showed up in Formula One and just ruined Fernando Alonso's day on his debut, because that was a fantastic bit of driving. Luke, are you still there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of the Andretti thing?
I think Kobayashi's arrival is great. I think it's all series, as you say. Japan is absolutely huge market, and it's really cool to see its sort of most prominent driver coming to the series. But yeah, as you were saying, he's so exciting, he's so aggressive. So it'll be really cool to see what he can do. I know Alejandro Agag is keen to get him in the series full time, so we'll see if that's with Andretti. I think otherwise, obviously, they have, as Chris explained, this sort of chop and change with Blomqvist and Sims. They have to be careful that they can only make 4 driver changes in a season, I believe. And between Kobayashi, Sims, and Blomqvist, that's 3 already. So they've just got to be careful on what they're doing. And
All right, then. Thanks much for that. And let's move on. And what do we expect? We expect Audi versus Renault at the top. But what do we really expect going from there? Who do you think is going to be following them up? And, hey, by the way, where can we see all this happen?
Well, it's really, really hard to kind of put an order on it. You would really expect Mahindra and Virgin to still be up there, especially Mahindra because they have made quite a big change in that they've gone to direct drive now, much like the Renault was last season, and given the breakthrough that they had last year, you would expect them to still be up there. Virgin, obviously, it's a very quick team, so you expect them to be there. Techeetah, obviously with that Renault powertrain, they're going to be competitive. I mean, as Luke said, they might struggle a little bit more against the manufacturers, but I still think that is, they're definitely still going to be very much in the mix. Behind that, it's a bit of a lottery because we don't really know what is underneath the bodywork of the likes of the Andretti and the Jaguar, who are supposed to be really changing their car compared to last season, given that it was an unfinished car. It wasn't what it was meant to be, and I'm expecting the likes of Dragon and Jaguar and Andretti to be making big leap forwards and really intensifying that midfield battle. I mean, last season we had 10 cars that were capable of winning E-Prix. But then that locks out your 10-point scoring finishes. Whereas I think now we're looking at a much more competitive series because we basically had some convergence almost. I mean, like I say, with Mahindra adopting the direct drive and Audi have done the same. Audi have had a massive overhaul with that car, ever since the manufacturer involvement came in. So it's a really a big step for a lot of those back market teams, I think.
Yeah, and that's going to be nothing but good to see. I mean, really, I can't wait to see where everybody else turns out and how close they get to the runners at the top. But I'm hoping it will be close because that makes for the best racing. And where, Ryan, are we going to be able to see these races?
So mainly in the UK, at least, you're going to be able to see these races on Channel 5 live, apart from the first race at Hong Kong, which will be on BT Sport. And you'll also be able to get highlights and extended highlights through BT Sport throughout the season.
I would like to point out on the Hong Kong business, obviously it not being on Channel 5 puts it behind the paywall. But Formula E being the fan-friendly series that it is, I'm 99.99999% sure they're going to be showing that live on Facebook without a geo-block. So you will be able to watch it on Facebook.
But then also an update for the Channel 5 lineup for their coverage. They've employed Vernon Kay as their studio... well, not pundit, but presenter. So there's been some very, very, very mixed opinions towards this move. I, for one, I'm sort of thinking, what's going on there? They managed to make it worse. Is it even possible to make it even more worse for the Channel 5 coverage?
I don't know. Is it, Chris?
I mean, I don't tend to watch the Channel 5 coverage, to be honest, but I mean, I can't really even comment on Vernon Kay because I don't. What is it? Not The Price Is Right, the ITV program, Family Fortunes. It's not really my kind of television, but it is big news for Formula E in terms of getting a well-known figure in UK television presenting to present this sport. I think it's a major hit for Formula E, really. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they will actually be attending races now as well.
That would be amazing. We're going to get a question from the chat room that's pretty good. Are they going to be keeping Jack Nichols for the streams? Do we know who's doing the world feed?
Yes. Jack Nichols and Dario still on the stream, which is great. We love the Jack and Dario combination.
It is fantastic. Oh man, it's like he's making Nish like that Dario Franchitti. It wouldn't have anything to do from being from the same country, I'm sure. All right, so we also have some fan questions. So, Ryan, What new driver pairing are you most looking forward to seeing?
Oh, that's a tough one, really. I'm actually interested to see how PK does in the Jaguar, because you know, obviously, like we've already said, are they going to be fast out of the box, which I doubt, or obviously is he in for the long run?
Excellent. Stevens, who do you think is going to be most intriguing?
It's got to be the Venturi pairing. That is such an exciting lineup for me, and two, properly class Mercedes drivers. And I don't at all think it leads into this rumor that the Mercedes sub team HWA are going to be using a Venturi powertrain when they test the waters next season.
No, not at all. Well, I tell you what, I am going to anticipate our next question and say I think the Techeetah pairing is going to be very interesting because you're looking at a car that can win races, and you're looking at a driver in Vern who is occasionally rumored to be, well, I hate to use the word bananas, but I have heard it used before in terms of him. So it should be really fun to see someone with the kind of experience Lauderer has under his belt take him on in equal machinery. I'm really dying to see who comes out on top there. And speaking of which, how do we think Lauderer is going to do?
I think he's going to do really well. He is a very experienced driver, and alongside Vern, that's a really strong partnership. I think he will struggle at first, like most do in Formula E. It's tough to jump into such a complicated series and be competitive. It's caught out the best. So in terms of qualifying pace, it could be right with Vern straight away. But I think the race pace, it will take him a while to sort of creep up to that. But certainly, I think he's going to be very strong.
What about you, Ryan? Who's your money on? Is your money on Lauderer doing well or not?
I think it's going to be very much the same as what Chris said. I believe that at the start of the season, it's going to be much like when Vern came into the sport, or even Lopez last season. He'll struggle to start off with, but I think he'll find his feet quite quickly, and he will be quick once he's found the feet.
Well, I think he will do better than people expect from the go, and I think that's because there's a lot of crossover between the modern LMP1 hybrid cars and Formula E. And in fact, I believe it might have been on Luke Smith's write-up of that WEC test, where one of the new drivers I think, stepping up and driving the Toyota was like, well, basically the boost, the traction is incredible, but once you run out of boost, it's basically like driving an LMP2 car. So if you're driving the LMP1 car, you have that very same regeneration issue that you're forced into dealing with in Formula E. So I think he's going to be properly competitive from the off. We have another one from Facebook. Will Oliver Turvey finally get his first podium this season? Can he thrive at NIO now PK is out of the picture?
I don't think PK was necessarily stopping him from thriving. It's interesting, it's going to come down to the car. Turvey is, more than capable of scoring podiums in Formula E. It's going to be all about how they've worked on the weight reduction of that car, how they've handled the balance, the handling, because, having that design, Formula E cars have already got all the weight at the back. Having the twin motor layout, it's tough, to handle. We've seen people struggle with it over the last couple of years. So we'll see. I hope he can. It'll be a popular result.
Right. And Ryan, anything to add to that?
Well, I think if NIO managed to get the combination correct with the twin motor, I think it would, and have Turvey in the car, because he did pretty good last season. Was he leading at one point in Mexico before the car decided that it was going to give up the ghost? So he's shown that he's not just capable of a podium. He's possibly capable of a win. So we could see that next season.
Brilliant. And then all from Twitter, will the new team shift the balance of power and immediately contend for podiums?
Oh, that's an interesting one, because this is sort of looking ahead a little bit, isn't it?
Yes.
I given the Mercedes have kind of almost, they haven't laid out their plans, but there's a strong rumor that they're bringing HWA in a year early to sort of see how it works. So I don't think they'll struggle maybe as much as what Jaguar did. Then again, they are, it's tough to compare because Formula E will be so different in 3 years' time when they do come into the sport. We'll be a year into the no car swapping era of Formula E, and I think they might. Yeah, I think they probably will struggle initially. I don't think they'll contend for podiums. I think they need to kind of take that year on the chin where they struggle around at the towards the back for a little bit, as is probably the way with any new team coming into any series, really.
And Ryan?
Well, yeah, with Mercedes, I think it will be very much like when they rejoined F1. I think it will be midfield for the start, then find their feet, and maybe, you never know, it might be like the beginning of 2014 where they're bang on the pace a season later once they've figured things out.
Right. Well, I'm going to point out the interesting wrinkle that, if I'm not mistaken, there's going to be brand new chassis and cars for season 5. And I think that's going to potentially shake everything up quite a bit. And if they play their cards right, I could see them immediately coming in and causing trouble for the established teams, because I think everyone's going to struggle with that season 5 switch. That's just my thought. And finally, could we get your thoughts on the whole Franz Andretti situation? And do you expect Venturi to be competitive with Mortara and Engel now in those seats? But you've already sort of answered that, but I'll give you a chance to do it again.
Yeah, definitely Mortara and Engel are going to be the competitive ones. It's about whether the car is going to be competitive. It's a whole nother story. But the Franz Andretti situation is really sad, isn't it? Here is one of the best drivers in Formula E who has been laid to waste. Basically, Franz and BMW, it was a partnership that didn't work. They weren't agreeing with each other. So I'm not surprised to see Franz split with the team. I'm also utterly amazed that no other team has picked him up. Because if I had been able to identify that situation early enough, I would have nabbed him straight away if I was running a team. So it does surprise me, but I believe he's still working on plans to come back in season 5. So hopefully that will happen.
Well, I have my fingers crossed for that. But in the meantime, he's doing some GT car driving now, because we saw him with Audi in Macau. Yeah,
he was in Macau. I'm not really sure what his plans for next season are. He could go and do whatever he wanted, really. He's a good enough driver.
Maybe he'll come talk to us here.
Oh, maybe he would.
Just saying. Why not? Anyway, Ryan, your thoughts on that situation?
I don't really have much more to add than what Chris has quite beautifully put.
Excellent. Well, then tell us, Ryan, where can we find you on the internet, and what are you plugging?
Well, at the moment, you can still find me on Twitter at Ferret115. That is IT, not ET. And you can also find me on Instagrams, posting some photography I've done, photos, motorsport and car related. That is also the same at Ferret115, IT, not ET. And also recently I took part in the McLaren's World's Fastest Gamer 24 hours at last Friday, where with Downforce Racing we finished 4th position, only behind the World's Fastest Gamer 2 first and second team, and VRS Coanda, who are iRacing stars. But yeah, anyway, go check that out as well.
Well done, Mr. Ferris. And Chris Stevens, where can we find you, and what are you up to?
So you can find me on Twitter at cstevens_journo, and I'll be reporting on the Formula E with formulaspy.com, along with the usual Formula 1 news. You can catch it all there, and I'll do Luke's plug, seeing as he's been unable to stick with us for the duration of the show. But you can follow him on Twitter at Luke Smith F1, and do absolutely go and do that, because if you are just a fan of motorsport, he's got you covered with Formula One, WEC, IndyCar, Formula E. He's got the works covered.
Right, and you can catch his ratings at crash.net, NBCS in F1, and I believe at his very own website as well. He started writing again recently, so do go check him out there. As for me, I'm at MattPT55 on the Twitters. Please go rain internet money on my new music album project, Nightscapes. You can look for it on Indiegogo, or just go listen to us on SoundCloud if you like that sort of thing. And remember, chicks dig heels, wounds cause scars, and glory is a fungible concept under certain philosophical precepts. This has been E-Radio Show. All right, then.
And we are out.
That's not bad. It was about an hour and 10 minutes of recording once all was said and done.
I have mine at an hour and 5, which I will easily, bring that down with the edit. So aside from Luke having to bail, unfortunately, that's very annoying, because we did sort of test the Wi-Fi yesterday and it seemed reasonable.
Well, the thing is, and I don't know what his travel situation is, but most hotels I've been to, you can plug into the Ethernet directly.
Oh, we should have tried that.
And that's what he needs to do if he's going to use hotel, because hotel internet should be good enough for a Skype call. But if he was wireless, then what happens is, if everybody gets on at the same time and starts running their devices, you get interference.
The only thing is, over there, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, so I don't know what everyone else is doing.
You're watching, what?
Yeah.
What does one normally watch in hotel rooms? I mean, people get on their computers. They're watching Netflix or stream Hulu or whatever.
But we are very grateful to Luke for giving up his time to come and talk to us on the show, and we hope that what you were able to, what we were able to get across, we hope that you enjoyed it.
The Artemy, who stuck it out to the bitter end, said it was a great show. So, and he does the Missed Apex shows too. So, we're getting some mildly positive reviews.
Good. I must sort of come and well, you can't check the comment. I haven't been able to have the pop up today.
Right.
But thank you to everyone. How many people have been watching?
I don't know. Where does it? Is there? I know there's a place where it's. Let me see if it. I'm gonna click. No, we're down to just 3. There was a reasonable number early on.
Okay. I mean, for a first show on the second channel, we've done very well. So if you are a Missed Apex regular, then please do go and shout to the other listeners about this channel. For now, it is just called Missed Apex, but we probably will be renaming it E-Radio Show, because it's probably the only thing that's going to end up going onto this channel, and this will be the home of the E-Radio live stream in season 4. So do make sure you subscribe as well. It will be, just like the same way with Missed Apex, you'll get the notification when we go live, which the aim is to kind of do the Monday or Tuesday after a race, depending on if I'm at a double header.
Yeah, well, the way my schedule looks now, unless you want to be up very, 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 very late at night or go very early in the day, then probably Tuesday is going to be a better choice.
Okay, so we're looking at Tuesdays then. But yes, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to kill the stream. But yes, thank you for joining us, and enjoy Formula E this season. Please do.